Hello, Garland Nixon here, hanging out with Laith Marouf, and we got a lot to talk about. Let's talk. Hello, Garland Nixon here. We're hanging out with Laith Marouf, and oh my gosh, we got a lot to talk about. We are going to, for those of you who've been living under a rock and you're not familiar with Free Palestine TV, we're definitely going to introduce you to that. That is a must. That's where you learn. You only get Laith once a week on this channel. FreePalestine.video, which is Free Palestine TV, is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Your English language website, TV station, we might as well call it, because everything you need is there. We're going to talk about that. First, we're going to get going with Laith for a little bit, and then we're going to introduce you to this great website. You can donate there, but it's not like, this is not some kind of an infomercial. You don't have to pay anything. You can only donate if you choose and if you feel like if you can afford it. But that's where the info is. Anyway, Laith, let us get rolling. Iran. I'm just going to get out of the way. Your thoughts on what happened?
Obviously the plot to, move something like what happened in Syria or in Libya in terms of a colored revolution joined by terrorist actions failed. And this is now prompting the US to look for a different way to defeat Iran. Obviously, the Iranian government managed to do something that nobody has done yet, and globally, which is to jam all the Starlink and satellite telephone communications in the country. They also cut the internet. They were now creating an intranet, just like China. There's going to be a social communication program that the Iranian government is going to be releasing to vie with WhatsApp and others. So this is all, of course, coming after their security operations, catching thousands of the agents that were working on the disturbances on the streets. This happened because Iran, number one, cut off the internet, the cell phone, even the landlines for 2 days, and we're hunting anyone that is using Starlink and has satellite communication. And eventually, now it seems like the US has lost any communication with its agents on the ground. This is why we hear a lot of organizations trying to pressure Iran to reopen its internet, all to be able to reach these agents. Now, having said that, this doesn't mean that the US is not going to try something new. We see a lot of movement of American military, equipment. We saw the withdrawal of American troops from Iraq for the first time since 1992. There's no American troops on Iraqi soil. We saw the major bases in Qatar, Bahrain, and Saudi all emptied. And over the last 48 hours, we saw tens of F-18s and F-16s being moved to the air bases in Jordan. That gives us an impression that Jordan will be the spearhead in an attack, an aerial attack by the US. We saw also movement of these heavy shipping aircrafts like whatever it is, like Hercules, that were carrying a lot of equipment and spare parts for the jets that are landing now in Jordan. We saw in Crete island of Greece, the whole central command that was stationed in Qatar and Bahrain is now sitting in Crete. So this means that this is going to be the major hub of communication and coordination of the activities for any attack on by the Americans on Iran. And finally, of course, we see 2 aircraft carriers making their way to the Arabian Sea. This is above and beyond, of course, what's happening in the Diego Garcia Island just off India. So it seems like the US is going to do long-range attacks from Jordan and from Diego Garcia, and is expecting that the American bases in the region will come under bombardment. This is why they're emptied now.
It is my opinion, and there people may not agree with me. You know, when the bully pushes around kids on the playground, and sooner or later a kid pushes back, and the bully's not in charge anymore. It is my opinion that the U.S. has hesitated because the price is too high, and it's potentially everything, right? To me, and maybe this is an exaggeration, this is me, I think if they attack Iran, that is the one that the empire's done. I think that Iran has the power, some that they haven't even. Yes, the empire is powerful, no doubt, but it's fragile. It has a glass jaw economically, right? The economy is weak. And if they attack Iran, Iran has abilities to really put the empire down. Bam. Which the empires internally, Americans, what they have always been able to do is either shield Americans from the pain of their foreign policy or make sure that it leaks in slowly so that the Americans don't say, this happened and we're screwed. They can say like, well, this happened. Oh, and then 6 months later, this happens. And then there's inflation, blah, blah, blah. And the Americans don't see this happened and we're screwed. Man, bad times in the empire. If they go through with this, I'm not 100% sure with it. All the indications are that they will, but the price and let me add one other thing. And Americans in big numbers are really pissed at the Zionists now. If this happens, Americans will say, what the hell did the Zionists do to us? And there could be something really bad that happens in this country as a result of that. I mean, as far as repercussions against the Zionists, it's a time, they're rolling the dice with everything on this one. If they pull this off, if they pull this trigger on this one, do you think I'm maybe over the top, or does it seem that way with you? To you?
Look, it's clear that the Zionist and the empire as a whole knows that it's now or never. If they do not kill all their opposition, they're going to collapse themselves. Okay, so this is partially why the empire has, dropped all pretenses about human rights and international law and all of that. This is why Trump is openly talking about, taking Greenland or Cuba or Colombia or Mexico, whatever it is, right? There's no more ability for the U.S. and the Zionist colony itself to wait this out. Okay, if there is a 1 minute of peace in the region and or in the world right now, there will be a reckoning inside the Zionist colony and inside the United States. Therefore, I think they are, escaping forward. This is what they're doing. They're not even waiting for fires to be put out where they start them. They're just moving on to the next and hoping that inflaming the whole world will weaken others more than it will weaken them. And this is what's important about looking at why would the United States risk a confrontation with Iran if it could lead to the destruction of much of the oil and gas capacities in the Arabian Peninsula. You'd think because the US owns this and that the petrodollar is the backbone of the American economy, that they'll want to keep this oil and gas safe. But if we step back a little bit and take a look at the forest instead of on the tree, what we'll realize is that the vast majority of gas and oil from Iran and from the Arabian Peninsula goes to either China, which is the #1 buyer, and or Europe. The United States has full energy independence. Plus, it really controls the Canadian and now Venezuelan oil. So it has its own security in terms of oil and gas. China, on the other hand, does have no backup for if the Arabian and the Iranian oil and gas is out of the market. The Russians cannot supplement that fall in capacity, no matter what they try. It will take decades for them to build enough pipelines and dig out enough oil fields and gas fields to satisfy the industrial base of China. So once we understand this, we realize that, you know what, it's actually in the interest in the United States, to burn the oil fields of the Arabic world, to cut off the supply of Iran to China. In fact, it will even more so in the interest of the United States that the trade routes of China going through Western Asia are out of the picture also and out of service, which means that if the energy prices are up and China doesn't have enough oil and gas to run its factories, then number one, it has to shut down a lot of factories. Number two, the price of the product coming out of China, because of the increase in prices of oil and gas, will also increase. Add to it the increase in costs for transporting Chinese goods through the firewall that the United States is rigging in Western Asia will increase. Therefore, suddenly we will find that American products behind this firewall in Africa, in Europe, in Latin America will be competitive again. You see? So the bigger picture is that the United States is willing to sacrifice the petrodollar of the Arabian Peninsula in order to bring China to its knees. And I know a lot of people that are pro the Chinese government or policies think that China can survive by itself, that China is too big now, or that Russia can survive by itself. But can China and Russia survive without the rest of the world market? They can't. They at least their rise will start to slow down. So this is, in my mind, why we see the United States risking such a game with Iran.
It makes perfect sense to me. And I had thought of that, it's interesting you say that. The old saying, great minds think alike, right? Over the last few days, I thought of the exact same scenario. And that is, what the heck? Because let's face it, if you're a member of the ruling elite, you're still always going to be rich. You've already prepared for this. You parked your money here and there in crypto, wherever the hell, right? And all you're doing is sacrificing the life of all of the lives and the future and the livelihood of all of the working class. But who the hell cares about them? They think no more of us than they do of the Ukrainians. They're economic cannon fodder. Now the Europeans, when they blew Nord Stream, they made the Europeans economic cannon fodder. Right? The American people, they think nothing of us. They don't have a country. So now we're the cannon fodder. And here's the thing. One of the giveaways to me, and you and I have been talking about this for a long time. Minnesota, they're starting to put the troops on the street because they know that when Americans wake up and their economy it makes the 30s look like the wonderful time that Americans are going to get angry. Hey, we're taken to the streets. Oh, really? Well, we've already got that straight, don't we? We've got police on the streets or ICE or whoever. We're going to put soldiers on the streets. And if you try to protest, we'll put a bullet in you. Simple as that. At first, it was a minority, like, hey, there's some black guy, he's got a shiny object. Pow! They shoot him, right? Now, they're doing it to white people. Now it's like, hey, there's a white person. Do what we tell you. And she's, huh? What? Pow! You're done. So now it's all set where they've got the troops on the street. You're accustomed to troops being on the street. And it goes from, yes, they're there to stop the illegal immigration to, well, since they're there, we might as well make sure nobody protests. It's all done.
Yes, and look, there's I saw some reports about troops, American troops that were in Alaska that were, being called to come to Minnesota. So it's very possible that they were being, martial law declared, especially if more and more city mayors and governors refuse the orders of Trump. And in a way, this is the end of the federalist model in the United States. This will be, direct federal rule of, let's say, a place like Minnesota as a state, and the end of that project of federalism. So we're moving. On the one hand, we see that, much of the country in the U.S., like 36% of the population is not of European origin. We're talking about Latin Americans, African Americans, Arab and Muslim Americans, what have you. And these are all populations that their home countries are target of the United States and have, loyalties that the United States questions as a state. So this is why they are being targeted, right? Look at the Somali population of Minnesota being a target. Is because of what the U.S. is doing right now in Somalia, trying to break up the country and loot its resources, as has happened before, but now in the open, right? So this means that, Somali Americans are threats to the American objectives of the government. There's already the infrastructure to create concentration camps that was built over the last 10 years almost, whether it's those COP cities or those detention camps that are now all across the US, with every day multiple people dying in those concentration camps. There's no overview, there's no Red Cross, there's no lawyer visits, there's no healthcare. So the situation is, I think, past what people thought would be the alarm bells. The people should have awakened to this from not even from day one of the genocide in Gaza, from before that, okay? But it's too late almost now, except for rebellion. And, seeing over the last few days, the new Black Panthers Party carry arms and move with the demonstrators in Minnesota. This is the indications, the beginnings of indications of formations of, militias in the United States that are self-defense militias. And this is going to lead to direct confrontation, as happened the last time the Black Panthers carried arms in the 70s, where we saw the attacks on Black neighborhoods by militarized police. Well, I think what we're going to see in the next few weeks and months, as this internal, cohesion of the state collapses, is much more violent than what we saw in the 70s, or the attack in Philadelphia on AIM, when the U.S. used helicopters to bomb the neighborhoods in Philadelphia that were loyal to the Black Panthers. So will the American public rise up? I hope so, because if they don't rise up, they will face the same fate as the people in Gaza.
Look at this. And if they do, they might have also faced the same fate as the people in Gaza. Look at this. And this was, you and I talked about this a while back, and we covered this months ago. Revealed, Pentagon orders states, National Guard to form quick reaction force for crowd control. Pentagon orders details plan to train 20,000 National Guard members across the U.S. to carry out Trump's order. And people think this is Trump. This is the ruling elite's order on subduing civil unrest, right? There we go. And look what you see. That's what you see. They're wandering around now. You're starting to see that everywhere. Remember, the National Guard patrolled the National Mall, right? This is way back. I don't even see. This is more than 2 months old. So bottom line is this. We have been covering it on this channel for a while, saying you better wake up. So think about it, America. Last summer, they told us there's crime in the streets, and we've got to put the National Guard on the streets to stop this crime. Now they're like, illegal immigrants. We've got to put ICE in the streets for illegal immigrants. There's one story after another, but they all come up to the same thing. We've got to put federal troops on the streets to quell whatever. And this specifically says for crowd control, for civil unrest. Oh, one other thing I got to show you, and that is, and here's a giveaway from Europe. Where is it? This is just 4 hours ago. Doggone it. I'm sorry. This is not good. There's a lot of oh, here we go. Here's one. This is from the Independent. Watch this. You're going to love this one. You're going to really, in case you haven't seen it, you're going to really love this one. The Bank of England must plan for a financial crisis triggered by aliens. The UK must plan for a financial crisis that would be triggered if the US government announces that aliens exist, a former Bank of England expert. So now there's all of these articles from Britain, and they all say the same thing. Trump might announce that there's aliens exist, right? And if he does that, that'll make the markets crash. And I read that. Let me just show this to you a little bit of a different way. I think it's important to do that. Sorry to take up extra time, but let's just read. This is what I read. Bank of England must plan for a financial crisis. Ignore the rest of it. Aliens, smalians. What they're saying is, man, things are about to collapse. And aliens, whatever the hell, we'll blame it on something. But why aliens? That's all we got. What they're saying now is crap. Is as you said, either that's the plan. Okay, we're going to do a run and let's go to crisis, or the other thing many of us have been saying, they are holding this thing together with bubble gum and duct tape, and this whole quadrillion-dollar asset-backed securities derivatives thing is ready to collapse, and they don't know what else to do. So they're like, well, what are we going to do? You think they'll buy aliens? We got nothing else. Let's play the alien card. And we better get some troops on the street because they're going to be pissed.
When you read that headline, put it back up there for a second. Let's just read it word to word. Bank of England must plan for a financial crisis triggered by aliens. And when I read that part, triggered by aliens, I thought of Dave Chappelle talking about space Jews. Those are the only ones that can fucking trigger a financial crisis.
Oh, I forgot about that joke.
This is literally what they mean by aliens that are going to crash the economy, the space Jews. So oh man, like this is it's amazing, you know, how ridiculous the propaganda is for them to fabricate such a story just to find a way to confuse the public who have no more belief in anything that politicians say. So maybe saying blame it on all aliens, maybe the public will start believing it, you know.
Well, there's another part of it too, and I've said this for a long time. The idea that the people who were the most, we discussed this, the Jews lived in the Muslim regions for 1,000 years. They were in Palestine. They got along fine. They were not mistreated. Go to Iran. The largest Jewish community outside of Israel in the Middle East is in Iran. The people who have never harmed or mistreated the Jews are the Muslims or the Islamic people. But where did the Holocaust occur? In Europe. Where was one of the most racist anti-Jew places? In the United States. So what did we have? The people who were the most anti-Semitic claimed we're here to protect the Jews. And might I add, the Zionists are mostly don't even believe in God. Most of the actual Zionists, if you look at them, they're not practicing Jews for the most part. I mean, they brainwash some people. So here's what I said all along. The history of this tells me this, that they'll say, we love the Jews. Oh, the Jews are wonderful. We must protect the Jews. When everything goes to hell, you know what the ruling elite will do? They'll blame the Jews. They will give us anything to say it's not us. So then, you know what they'll say? it's the aliens' fault. And people are like, oh, that's bullcrap. Okay, it's the Jews. Go ahead and do another Holocaust. The Jews will be those of us who are the angriest will be the ones that are trying to say, look, guys, don't blame. We don't want to see a Holocaust. We don't want to see people murdered. Those of us who were called the anti-Semites will be the ones saying, hey, we're opposed to people blaming and violence against Jews. This is the ruling elite. There is an irony here. And that is that how can you, as a Jewish person, think the people who have committed the Holocausts are now here to protect you? They're setting you up for another one. They will blame you. And then they'll have to look at us to say, those of us who have against all this crap, to try to say, look, guys, we don't want to see this happen. Don't blame the Jews. And they'll be doing it again.
Yeah, look, for a long time, obviously, there was, at least before World War II, there was a civil war inside the Jewish community between the Zionist and the anti-Zionist. And because much of the anti-Zionist militants sided with the Soviet Union and fought on the fronts against the Nazis, by the end of World War II, the vast majority of the leadership of the anti-Zionist Jewish camp were martyred. And the Zionists did a takeover in much of the Jewish organizations in Europe under the auspices of the Nazis, who appointed them as the only sole representative of Jews in every country that they occupied, and also in the United States. In fact, till the last minute before the vote in the United Nations or League of Nations to partition Palestine, the Jewish community was in the United States 50-50 and having an outright fight. And there was money bags being passed between the Zionists and the anti-Zionists and members of the American government at the time, the president and the Secretary of State, competing with each other over influence. But that in a way is history, okay? Even, when we look at right now, how since that day, since 1948 till today, how the vast majority of synagogues fell under control of the Zionists. And, maybe in the 1940s, the leadership of the Zionists were not religious, but now we look at what's happening, there's a huge change, right? It's Netanyahu, Smotrich, Ben Gvir, they're actually, believe that they are the part of a chosen people, that God is giving them this land, that they are, doing God's bidding. And there's a change even inside the Zionist colony itself. And that happened demographically, right? So you have the religious Jews that their birth rate is, 6 point something for each woman, while the secular or, less religious Jews are, their birth rate is below 2 for each woman. So what has happened over the last 30, 40 years, more than before, is that there was a demographic shift inside the Zionist colony, where now, more than 60% of the population is belonging to religious Zionist movements. And even the anti-Zionist religious Jews, like the Neturah Karta movement, they still go to Palestine, occupied Palestine. They still benefit from the social services of the Zionist colony when they go and take over neighborhoods in Jerusalem and so on. And they demonstrate only inside the Zionist colony, only if the Zionist colony is going to take them to the military. But they don't go demonstrate as anti-Zionist religious Jews for the liberation of Palestine. So what I'm trying to say here is that even though me and you know what is true Judaism, the Judaism of our prophet Moses, the liberator of slaves, okay, although me and you know that the core values of Jewishness or Judaism, as Prophet Moses put it forward, is the same core values of the Abrahamic religions, meaning we all come from one mother and one father, Adam and Eve, we're all equal, and our test here on this earth is about how we treat each other. Don't kill, don't steal, don't covet your neighbor's things. So even though that's the truth, that doesn't mean that Judaism today, as vastly practiced by the vast majority of those who call themselves Jewish, is not a Jewish supremacist Zionist formation. It's a perversion of the original Judaism. But unfortunately, right now, I think the other thing about when the day that the empire collapses, and I think the Zionists have calculated for that, and this is why they have their nuclear weapons. They know that even if one day the empire collapses and blames the collapse of the empire on Jews, they have the nuclear weapons that they can threaten even imperial capitals like Washington, London, and Paris with. So it's a little bit more complicated than me and you hope and wish for it to be. But that's the reality of today.
Well, this is an important intellectual and philosophical conversation. I'll go a little deeper. And it's important because this is without the interesting thing about our conversations is our conversations are never about anger and hate. Our conversations are always about love and understanding. And these are intellectual conversations, right? So here's what I'll say. This is even broader for this reason. It is the weaponization of religion. And here's what I mean. I know a lot of Jewish people who are very anti-Zionist, who are 100% on board, like this is great, blah, blah, blah. I mean, they're right with us, right? You know what they say to me? I've heard this, I don't know how many times. Yeah, when I was growing up, I used to think that stuff, all that Zionist stuff, I was brainwashed. And they used to say, yes, a land for people without a land. And I thought this and I thought that, and I was brainwashed. Here's my point. If you look at what the colonial powers, the empire and the British Empire, et cetera, had done, I didn't realize this. I talked to people from Korea, and they were telling me how when they were kids in school, they're brainwashing the kids. The North Koreans, who literally are family members, right on the other side of this arbitrarily line that was drawn by the empire. They're commies over there. They hate you. They eat you. They eat people. What they're doing is they're taking these South Koreans and they're brainwashing them. The North Koreans, which were literally your family members, are your enemy, and they brainwash them from very, very young, right? We go to Ukraine. They have been fomenting and fostering this Nazi since the end of World War II so that they can set these people up to go throw themselves to their deaths. So they brainwash the Ukrainians with hate and with this vile ideology so they can then use them and throw them at the Russians, the South Koreans, so we can use them and throw them at the North Koreans. And what do they do with the Jewish people? They literally, this is something they do everywhere. This is their game. If they go to Africa, they find two tribes. And they brainwashed one tribe in this country, in this area, that the other tribe hates them so that they can sacrifice them, right? This is brainwashing. Look at ISIS, right? This perversion of Islam. So what have they done? We have to brainwash the people in the Jewish community to think whatever it is we want them to think so we can utilize the Zionist colony. Occupy Palestine. This is the game. When people understand it and you see it, this is the game they played everywhere. But if you say, look, they did it to the Ukrainians, the North Koreans, they did it in Africans, they did it with ISIS, they're doing it to the Jewish people. That's anti-Semitism. It's the opposite of anti-Semitism.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, divide and conquer and hybrid wars and propaganda and molding new identities that didn't exist. All of these are specializations of the imperial order over the last few hundred years. So there wasn't, anything special in how the Zionists were manipulated and or participated in fabricating this new Jewish identity, right? The question is right now, what are anti-Zionist Jews doing? Because me and you, we can talk as much as we want to and show our love to Judaism and Prophet Moses and his teachings as much as we want to. But if those who call themselves Jews do not take action and fight for that reality of what it is to be Jewish, then the victor will set the tone, right? And in this situation, the victor is the Zionist within the Jewish community. Yesterday, I was looking at the tax filings of Jewish Voices for Peace, JVP, in the United States. They have raised $10 million in 2024. $10 million. This is really on the back of the genocide in Gaza, right? So here's an organization that has $10 million that's supposed to call itself critical of Zionism or the state of Israel. Now, I looked at their expenditures. There's 0 Palestinian projects, Palestinian organizations, Palestinian individuals that received any funding from JVP. The salaries of their staff is over $2 million. Okay. The vast majority of the money was spent on events and security for events. There was no events being done that are internally to the Jewish community. If you looked at the list of events that they spent their expenditures on, it was all these critical Jews talking to the white majority. Okay, well, the white majority is already being talked to by the Palestinians and is looking at social media and is really educated. The vast majority of human beings, including in the American population, know that Israel is committing a genocide. So what is JVP or Independent Jewish Voices, other organizations in Canada and other places, what are they doing? If they're abandoning the battle over the heart of Judaism, they're refusing to go have a battle with other Jews that are Zionists, that are supposedly denigrating their own religion that they love, right? Look at these sales of looted Palestinian land in synagogues. There has never been one Jew that rebelled inside those synagogues. I can understand, somebody standing outside demonstrating outside across the street from the synagogue. That was going to happen. The Palestinians were going to do it, the Arabs, the Muslims, the leftists. But what I expect from anti-Zionist Jews, critical Jews, is for them to go inside the synagogue and to try to liberate their house of worship and their religion from the whole of Zionism. But they're refusing to do so. So, unfortunately, anything and everything that happens to Jews and Judaism from this point on, I don't even blame it on Zionists or the Nazis that are going to come after the Jews. I blame it on the cowardice of anti-Zionist Jews. Cowardice to take action for their own self. I don't want them to liberate Palestine. I want them to liberate Judaism. So Judaism cannot be abused by the Zionists and the imperialists to kill Arabs and Muslims. So this is where I think why the situation is very critical. If, and I hate saying if because it's like trying to go back in time, but imagine if these anti-Zionist Jews actually led a rebellion when the genocide began 2.5 years ago, led a rebellion inside the synagogue. What would have happened? It would have been a different story. They still have the ability to make a difference, these anti-Zionist Jews, because them talking is not making a difference to the reality. They still have the ability to take action within their own community, and it will have dramatic effects on the realities, but up until now, they are all cowards, in my opinion.
And let me add something to this, and this is from the Black community in America. You still have people who are like, oh, we're going to go to Representative so-and-so or Black Senator so-and-so, and they think these so-called Black leaders or Black members of Congress, that they're somehow going to go to them, because that's what these groups do, right? These groups, whether it's a lot of the Jewish so-called peace group, not so-called, they're well-meaning peace groups, right? Or these black whatever groups that want peace or fairness or whatever, right? They're taught by the system. In fact, I could make an argument that some of them are a vital part of the system. They're like a pressure release valve, right? A bunch of black people are upset and they need to release that pressure, right? So you have some black group for black whatever people stuff, freedom or something, right? Okay, you had that group, many of which are probably infiltrated. And that group then says, we're going to go to Congress and demand whatever, right? Congress are the people that are doing this crap. You know what I mean? So you have some people that teach you, whether it's the Jewish peace groups, the black liberation, these groups or whatever, right? They are trained. That's why I say sometimes these groups, as a black person, I try to say on my radio show, you're being trained to go to the system that's doing its dirt and ask the system that's doing it to relieve you from them. You know, it's like these idiots. I'm like, dude, if you think this thing is about, ICE is there in Minnesota to help the American people, you're a fool. This is what they'll say, conservatives. And it's the same thing, whether it's Jews, black, conservatives, whatever. This is conservatives. But illegal immigration really is a problem. And I'm like, but if you think the government who created the problem, NAFTA, took the jobs, destroyed the lives of 1.4 million Mexican farmers, NAFTA. And those farmers showed up on our border. And go to their communities. And what are you going to find? Who's cutting their grass? Who's watching their children? Who's cleaning their houses? Undocumented immigrants. They got them there. Go to all of the rich places and they have all undocumented immigrants there. And they're paying them next to nothing. They want undocumented immigrants. That's the best thing. They don't have to pay you full price. They can give them next to nothing, and they can threaten them, and they can rape them, and they can do anything they want, and they can abuse their children, because if they say, hey, you can't do that, well, if you do, I'm going to turn you in and you'll be taken back. So they love that, right? So here's my point. So you have these conservatives, they're standing up. They've got to stop illegal immigration. You believe that the government that created a system of undocumented immigrants is there to resolve it? You think the government is sending people to the street. You're foolish. You think the Trump administration is on your side and they're sending people to the street to build things up, to make this country better. Look around the world, and what do people in uniforms with camouflage and American flags do? They blow up, they destroy, and they tear down. They don't rebuild anything. And you're brainwashed enough to think that in this country, they're going to take to the streets and they're going to do anything different than what they did on the streets in all over the lands of Islam, or what they do all over South America and Africa. They're going to do this. That's what they're there for. But these brainwashed people still think that their oppressor is somehow going to bring them salvation.
Oh yeah. Look, of course, look at what happened to the Somali community. I mean, did we hear Ilhan Omar talk anything about Somalis and Somali rights and the destruction of Somalia, or that those childcare centers? Quiet, total quiet, similar to any Arabic or Muslim member of Congress. They've been quiet as Arabic and Muslim countries are being destroyed. So much of the elected political class is either, as you mentioned, pressure release valve, or fully in cahoots with the system. So there is no way for any part of the American people to have true representation. Even those what we would call right-wing white people. Does Trump really represent them? This pedophile, when the vast majority of these right-wing people are, faithful, God-loving people that are working hard, even if they're right-wing and I have some disagreement with them, I know that Trump doesn't represent them. So nobody in the United States has true political representation in the electoral process. And this is part of why I think Trump is throwing all of this away. It doesn't matter anymore he saw that he can, send these troops to the streets of the major cities. And even though these major cities are supposed to be the most radical in his mind against his policies, neither the elected officials of those cities and or the populace put any much opposition that could threaten Trump's directions. So I think the electoral process is over. Look, if there's a full-out war with Iran in the next few days, and literally the oil fields are up in flames, and the price of a barrel of oil jumps to over $100, and people in the United States are unable to drive to their work because they can't afford it. Okay, then there is a bigger chance that the populace in the United States will take the risk of confrontation with their government. And this is, I think, why Trump is moving so fast on having armed militias and troops on the ground in fear of what's going to happen if even though the U.S. has its own supply, and even though if the price of oil goes up, it means the extraction of the Venezuelan oil will be more worth it, because up until now, by the way, none of the oil companies want to extract the Venezuelan oil because it's so expensive. It's more expensive than the price on the market for a barrel. Therefore, it's not worth it. So in that moment, there's still going to be a month or two before Trump is able to either convince the oil companies in the United States to sell at a price that is subsidized by the state inside to make sure that the populace doesn't rebel, and or to bring in oil from Venezuela that is to flood the market in the US. In any case, I think the governing elite in the empire are willing to even have slaughterhouse inside the United States of minorities, of the poor, whatever, that will rebel in a situation of increase in prices, because they would rather have a much more feeble and nimble population that they can control and have more resources extra by getting rid of the population. So the experiment of the COVID was partially about that, trying to get rid of all the elderly that were putting a lot of stress on the social services and the cost of the social services, trying to get rid of anyone that had any birth defects, any undesirables. And the populace was quiet. They took it on the chin as they culled huge masses in Europe and the United States.
Oh, how about the lockdowns and stay in your house? We can get people accustomed to being told by the government, don't leave your house unless we give you permission.
Yep. So imagine that there's a full-out war in Western Asia, and there is rebellion in the streets, and the troops are out, and everybody's told to stay home and tell on, because remember, they were asking people to tell about anybody that breaks the COVID lockdowns. People are ready to be rats, okay? Especially if they're hungry, and if Trump is giving money for those who collaborate with the state. So, the situation is on the edge. I hope the American people will have the ability to, fight back. It's their only hope.
Let me show you something real quick. If we're just talking about these so-called, these peace groups, and I'm not saying any peace group is good, bad, or indifferent, right? But watch this. Okay, so here's a group called Peace Action. Jasmine Crockett voted with us 72% over lifetime. Well, there you go, Peace Action. She's really awesome. We got to love Jasmine Crockett, right? Oh boy, she's just a member, and she's a Black female, and she's this and that. And what do you know? Does Jasmine Crockett support Israel? Absolutely. Yes. And here's what that actually means. Her defense is she hasn't materially supported Israel. Her defense is that the support came packaged with other. There you go. Oh, she is It's a bunch of crock of crap. So this peace action group. Oh yeah, she's with us. She's a minority, diverse, strong woman standing up for this. And when you look at it, she just voted for like $26.8 billion more. And so, as I said, what they do is these peace groups, they have the peace groups support the warmongers. And then you support the peace group, and then the peace group goes to the warmongers and says, will you stop war? And then the warmongers say, sure, yeah, whatever, talk to you in 6 months. Go back and keep. It's their way of keeping you quelled, whether whatever group it is, or the conservatives say, we're going to go talk to a member of Congress because they got to do something about these illegal immigrants. You literally beg them for your oppression. What can you do to stop illegal immigrants? Well, we can put troops on the street. Thanks, great idea.
Yes, and I think most of the white right-wing population doesn't understand that, you know, much of our other communities, like the Black and brown communities, are really defeated long time ago. You know, what Black community or brown community can put a fight up against the US? It is the white population, right-wing white population, that is, you know, very armed in the US, that has not had its, you know, humility broken yet. With slavery and what have you, and they are actually the biggest threat. And this is why we see this concentration on the MAGA versus MAGA really bothering the Zionists and the imperialists in general. They're worried because if somehow, you know, look at that woman, that mother that got killed in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
There. I think they were scared more than ever after killing her, the elite in the United States, because she was white, because she was a mother of three, because she was not an activist. This could have turned a lot of white people against what ICE is doing. And so if there is any true revolutionary or sovereign, whether right-wing or not, white people right now in the United States, it is also their moment to come out. Look at, you know, with the Black Panthers, come out with a white militia carrying arms with the Black Panthers, refusing federal tyranny, right? I mean, where are those people of
what? They're cheering for it. They're cheering for it. Yeah. The street. I saw Republicans, 86% of supporting it. They're begging for it. They're doing what I said about these Black groups that think they can go to Jasmine Crockett and ask her to support them. They're going to the federal government saying, yes, relieve us from this problem that you caused, that you're benefiting off of. Stop this thing that gives you, you know what they're not doing? Oh, we've got to go after these illegal immigrants. How come you're not going to the meat packing houses that are loaded with them, that are owned by the billionaires? How come you're not going to Tyson's Foods that are loaded with immigrants? How come you're not going to the construction sites that are owned by Trump and all these other people who are loaded with? You ever notice where they could find them? If you wanted to lock up all of the illegal immigrants, you could do it in one day. We're going to the meat packing houses. We're going to the chicken farms that make the chickens. We're going to the construction sites. You could wipe them all out, but you'd also wipe out the billionaires who are paying them next to nothing. So instead, you go to the streets and you grab a bunch of people who are Americans, beat the hell out of them, shoot them, and then claim that you're standing up against illegal. It's such a fraud.
Yeah,
and these people are being took.
Every day we hear those stories of people that were American citizens that were nabbed by ICE and spent weeks and months in ICE detention centers. And there is some of them that were white also.
Yes.
The media doesn't want to tell you this, but because of the thuggery that right now is rampant in the recruits to ICE, being picked off the street, anyone that is ready to kill or has a bully background or wants to prove themselves is just going to ICE. Because of that, I think it's going to become increasingly harder and harder for the elite to control what's happening on the street. It's one thing for Trump and the cabal around him or the elite around him to have a plan. But once you hire so many thugs and you set them loose out in the street, things could come out of control. And I think we will see more and more white people killed and oppressed and nabbed and disappeared by ICE. Not because the elite wanted to happen, but because things are out of control, and there will be consequences. And I hope that the people in the United States are able to save themselves before it's too late.
Everybody, don't forget, if you want to find out what's going on with Laith, go to FPTV. That's freepalestine.video. That's freepalestine.video, Free Palestine TV. You can see there, it's great video, latest episodes, field reports, military operations. Make sure you go up and click for their social media links so you follow them on all of their social media. And of course, the most important thing you can do, if there's any way you can afford it, click on the donate button and donate it. And of course, you can do a one-time donation. That's certainly an option. But even if it's a little bit, whatever you're doing, you can make it monthly, even if it's $5, $10, $20 a month, because that makes a big difference. So freepalestine.video is where you will find this. I think we had another great intellectual conversation, a conversation that doesn't focus on one group, don't demonize one group. It simply we look at the broad issues here and try to figure out how we can motivate people to both understand their plight and to come together to realize, man, we got the same, as Malcolm X said, we have a common oppressor. Thanks a lot, Laith Marouf. Look forward to talking to you soon, and we will be back soon. Every Monday, 9 a.m., Laith Marouf. Share this on all your social media platforms. We're out.